Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Art Side of Life. I'm Eva, for those of you who might not know me yet, and I created another compilation video from various interviews from different artists, and today's episode is all about art tools. So if you are wondering maybe what you should buy or what you want to check out, this is maybe episode you will really like. And of course, you should know first the skills, the fundamentals, and everything is more important than the art tools. But with cool art tools, it's just more fun. So now let's just get to the interview part. And now you also draw a lot with watercolors, right? And so how did you get to watercolors? Or why did you choose this medium?
With watercolors, I originally drew a lot with watercolors when I was a kid because it was, I guess, affordable medium to me. I had not very expensive watercolor set, and I was always using it. And I guess it's kind of like eventually. So yeah, I had a break. I had a break from traditional art for quite a long time, like at least 5 years. I didn't touch traditional media. I was working digital mostly. I was doing vector art and I was very into it. So I love vector. But then I didn't had, you kind of get bored sometimes of doing the same stuff. So I just ditched it and started doing digital. And when I felt like coming back to it, I picked it up. And of course, I needed to rebuild my confidence in working with watercolors. But I feel like I'm pretty decent right now with using them. Yeah. Like, I'm comfortable at the point that I can control watercolor. I know how it works. And I enjoy working with it. That's most important part, I think.
And do you have a favorite brand of the watercolors now?
So I don't use very expensive watercolors. I feel like it doesn't really matter in nowadays when most of people just can work and post online. And if you want to sell original, people expect with better watercolors and better mediums that painting will hold for like many years, 100 years. But to be honest, nobody keeps stuff for that long. Nobody keeps prints for 100 years. Come on.
That's true.
I don't keep them on walls. I hang it for a while, then change with others. Like, I don't keep stuff, especially with watercolors. When I buy somebody's original, I keep it in a drawer. I don't like it exposed to light. Yeah. So I use Winsor & Newton. Cotton series. It's a student quality, but they still pretty good and very affordable. And I don't think you need to make better art to have better quality supplies. You can do good art with basically any supplies. It doesn't matter really. So Winsor & Newton is my, I guess, favorite. I work with it all the time. Most of my paintings are done with Winsor & Newton Cotman series, not even professional series. They are expensive. And it's not that I don't have money to spend on it. I just don't feel like the need.
Yeah.
And recently I got into Holbein Watercolors. They are expensive and they are professional, but I use it, like some spots and some colors. I don't do full drawing with Holbein yet, but I got the set and I'm looking forward to start using it, but I'm still like taking my time. I don't want to open it yet.
So what colors did you get from Holbein?
I got a 60 tube set.
It's just okay, so like the full set.
Yeah, I asked it for my birthday. My husband got it to me, so I'm looking at it for 2 months already. Like, should I open it? Yeah. And also, I'm waiting till I get the palette to transfer it into palette because it's going to be pretty huge palette.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I like Winsor & Newton, because I use travel sets and they're very small, so you can take it anywhere. That's very nice.
When you're creating stuff, do you also adjust it later on in like Photoshop or other digital tools, or it's like purely like traditional art?
I often adjust my traditional work. Like for example, the yellow series, when I paint it with I do like a pencil sketch, then I go over with pen and then acrylic over the top. Sometimes the acrylic, the layers kind of don't turn out as vibrant as I would like. So, I scan the piece, put it into Photoshop. I adjust like the lines and the colors. And, for Instagram, for example, my phone is so bad. I still use like a Samsung Galaxy S4, which is which is literally like 6 years old. So every time, like I, take a picture, it's very dark. So I have to like put it into Photoshop, edit the lighting and everything. So even with pictures, not even with my pieces, even with the pictures, I still have to edit them digitally. And I'm very much inspired by concept art, even though I don't do concept art myself, and like it's very inspiring for me. I think concept artists are insanely skilled. They put so much time into, knowing so much of the like fundamentals and the theory. So I think you can learn a lot from concept artists. So maybe, I don't know, maybe in the next few years, I'll try to go back more to digital work because I was always inspired by Lord of the Rings and other movies like similar to that. So, maybe sometime I go back to those, fantasy creatures and...
Yeah, I would love to see that. I actually worked on Lord of the Rings for a bit in Lego as well, so I really love the movie too.
Oh, God. Oh, that's great.
So it's really cool. And do you have like a favorite brand of pencil or paint or something like, okay, this is my pen or my pencil, that's the one?
I think it's with the watercolors, because I do a lot of watercolor, I think it's important to have a very good watercolor paper. It can save so much of your time, because if you have a cheap quality watercolor paper, the water doesn't flow that well, the pigment doesn't spread that well. And you might think that you're crap at watercolor, but actually it's sometimes the paper, the materials that you use. So I use Fabriano Artistico watercolor paper, which I've been using for, I think, 3 years. It's quite expensive. It's similar to the Arches watercolor paper, but it's very good quality. I think it's shipped from Italy. So I think I purchased it for about £30 for like 20 A3 sheets. So that's my probably like favorite material. But even just like with pencil, I think with pencil, sometimes you can use like a regular pencil and you can create amazing work. So it's not always the materials that can be like faulty. I think Moleskine drawing notebook is amazing for graphite, but I'm very much against the watercolor one because they changed the paper about 2 years ago. And so many people are complaining, like, why they changed it. Because, like, I used it recently and it's just, it's terrible. I've been posting on, like, Instagram how frustrated I am about the paper. But the graphite one, the one for graphite is really good. And then the brushes, I just use, like, regular brushes for my watercolor. I don't buy anything, like, fancy. And then I think having a big workspace, especially if you're a messy, is awesome because you can like stack up everything. And then, I'm a very messy person. So like I always need like a big workspace. And I think that can save loads of your time because then you're not like, squashed like a little desk. So yeah, having a big workspace. And then Moleskine, Fabriano Artistico, Faber-Castell pencils are awesome. The black polychromo is awesome for drawing.
So you always take your sketchbook with you when you go, so it's not that you take a picture?
Sometimes I take a picture if I don't have the time to get my sketchbook out. I try to bring it everywhere I go.
So you have like a small one or what do you carry with you?
I have this size.
Okay. That's Moleskine, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's Moleskine, right. Yeah, I like it the best. I tried a few, but this is, I like the paper and the size and it fits in every bag. So.
Yeah, and so what would you kind of recommend people to try? Like first, maybe like a favorite sketchbook or a pencil, which you like, some maybe brand if they want to try one pencil or more.
You mean if they already decided they want to go with pencils first on paper?
Yeah, for example, what are your favorite tools?
I usually use those pencils from Faber-Castell. Can you see? And I use different softness. Yeah, the softness of them are different. I have very hard ones and very soft ones, and in between different stages, because I usually start my drawings by taking the hardest pencil, which will be the lightest on my paper, so I can draw the basic composition first and the basic elements that I want my drawing to have without having to be very certain about every line that I make, because it's so light on the paper that I can either erase it, or even if I leave it there, as soon as I take my 4B pencil or my 8B pencil, the other one won't be visible anymore because the contrast is so high with the other ones. And then I go up and get more and more certain with my drawing and find out where my darkest parts are, and then I go really in with the soft pencils and make it as dark as I can, because I like to have a very large value range in the drawing.
Yeah. And from traditional tools, do you have some favorite one?
So when I paint outside in a small sketchbook, I really like the Moleskine or Moleskine, whatever you call it, watercolor book.
Yeah.
That's very nice paper. It takes a beating with water without buckling. That's very good. But when I paint, and I use just any old brush I can, because the sketches are so small that the brushes don't need to be that high quality. Yeah. So just a bunch of rounds or flats. Really, I use my old brushes from my studio when I travel. But when I travel with a larger watercolor setup, like the videos I'm filming now are my easel watercolor setup with that's 12 by 16 inch. So it's a little larger. I need higher quality for that. So I use, I like Saunders 140-pound cold press paper. And I like brushes from a company called Escoda.
Okay, that's
for me, they just make. Yeah, they're based in Spain, so in Europe we can get them pretty easily.
Yeah.
I actually just ordered a batch from their warehouse just yesterday. Okay. So, because I like with watercolor, I find for me, I really need a sharp point. So I get round brushes, because with a round brush they have a sharp tip, but it tapers wider at the base.
Yeah.
So you can get a thick stroke or a very thin stroke with just one brush. And I keep my materials very high quality when it comes to watercolor.
Yeah.
And I just use Winsor Newton paint.
Okay, because I need to still try some of this, so I need to pick your brain. What should I try?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so if you're, my recommendation, if you're painting in a small sketchbook, just get a very small palette of, like, you can even use dry color. I don't use dry color. I use a small palette that I squeeze wet watercolor onto, and I let that wet watercolor dry on the palette. Yeah. And then the cool thing with watercolor is you just take a spray bottle and spray those watercolors, and they come back to life on the palette. True. So you can do that too. And then I also recommend, when you're outdoor sketching, is bring along some white gouache paint. Because oftentimes the watercolor is not the best for really small studies. You sometimes need a bit of opacity. And gouache really, really helps that. So whenever you see a sketchbook study of mine, there's always some gouache in it too. But and I achieve gouache by, like I said, white gouache mixed with watercolor will get you basically gouache.
Okay. Yeah. That's really cool.
Anyway, I could go on for days about painting up.
Yeah. And you're creating these artworks digitally, or inking, or acrylics? Or what is your favorite medium? Do you have a favorite now?
I'm all over the place right now. I still love digital. I do all my sketches digitally. If you look at my Instagram account or whatever, I sometimes share the preliminary sketches for my ink work. I just do them in Photoshop because it's so convenient. You can flip it, you can cut it out and paste it and everything. And then I print it out, and then I transfer it onto paper, and I go with ink and Copic markers on top. So that's one thing. That's the little ink series I've been doing. And
how do you transfer it to the paper, to explain then, you know, when someone who never done that is like, oh, you just transferred. So
Yeah, it's really bad. I'm kind of I just print it out and then I tape it to my window and then I take a pencil and transfer it. If I had more money, I'd buy a light box. That would be nice.
Yeah.
But other than that, I started doing those in winter. Uh, those little drawings, and the sun goes down at 5
you have to be
winter.
efficient.
So I
Like,
always had a deadline to finish my drawing before 5 every day, because other than that, I wouldn't have the light to transfer. That was kind of stupid.
but that's perfect. I mean, because then people always have excuses, you know, I cannot do this because I cannot have the light books or whatever. So, window.
Yeah.
Cool.
Especially in winter, it creates your deadlines for you. Yeah, but that's one thing, and I also work digitally, just in Photoshop, coloring it. That's nice for trying out different color palettes. You can always change it around. I kind of miss that when I'm doing traditional work, but I really want to have an original in the end that I can hold in my hand and sell and all those kinds of things. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, that's really nice. And then from traditional paints, do you have like a favorite brand or something, you know, like you really love?
Oh man. As I said, I'm working, or did I say that? I don't know. I'm exploring acrylic paint right now. And I use it like watercolor. I just water it down a lot. I use Schminke acrylic paints. They're nice, I think, and I like that kind of technique because when you use regular watercolor, you paint something and then you go over it with water again, and kind of some of the pigment that's on the page gets lifted up again, and it does things that you're not expecting. And I like planning stuff a lot. I mean, watercolor is probably not the best medium for planning, but I kind of like the random effects you get. But once I have those effects, I want them to stay there. And when I use acrylic, I can just go on top again and again and again, and it doesn't destroy my previous layer that I have. And there's one artist that I really, really like. I'm always butchering her name. Tran Nguyen. I don't know. She's
I'm not sure.
Yeah, she's Vietnamese, and her name is My Name is Tran, I think, on most things. So you can find her there without trying to pronounce the name or write
let's
it.
put it in the show notes afterwards so people can check it out also with the link.
Yeah, she's awesome. She does those surreal, dreamlike paintings with large women and small houses and landscapes, and it's kind of Alice in Wonderland. Like, do you know how to pronounce her name? No, okay. I always feel bad, but yeah. And she's also using watered down acrylics and colored pencils. So that's been an inspiration for me. I want to try that out.
And then, like the paper, do you have like a specific paper you also use, or you just do it in a sketchbook, or something maybe people can try out?
I've just used this once, but I like it a lot. I bought this hot pressed watercolor paper. It's called Canson Moulin du Roi or something like that. Yeah, and it's really, really smooth, and it also takes the water kind of well. I read on Amazon that it's not very good if you're using watercolor because it lifts up so much when you put down a layer and you go above it again. Everything gets destroyed that you've done before. But since I'm using acrylic paints, that's no issue because it's waterproof, it stays there. So I can recommend it for acrylic and ink work. And for the for the little ink drawings I'm just using Hanemühle Nostalgie paper. It's kind of off-white and it's thick and it works well. It doesn't wrinkle that much.
Oh, that one I haven't tried. I tried Canson, but the other one I haven't tried yet. So you write your stories first and the ideas, and then you go to create characters, or does it also sometimes happen the other way, that you feel like, oh, this character can tell this story?
Actually, most of the time is that I make the drawing and then I create the story.
Ah, Okay,
Yeah.
really nice. Yeah, definitely. And when you are also working with watercolors or the traditional media, do you have like some favorite tools? Like, oh, this is my favorite brand, or doesn't matter for you?
Yeah, actually, I recently discovered liquid watercolors, and can I say the brand?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, the brand is called Pebeo,
I haven't tried
let's
that
say.
yet. Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's really cool. I really love it. It's so smooth and soft, and the borders are so well defined. It's really cool. I really love it.
And do you also have like a favorite paper, or you're trying different types?
I've been trying different types. Well, Moleskine notebooks are really good.
Yeah.
But actually, I have now a notebook from Muji. It's a Japanese brand.
Yeah,
So this combination of Pebeo watercolors with Muji paper is really good. I really liked it.
Oh, definitely. That sounds good. I need to try.